hard to beat Tim Minton, right? Do we really want to do an event after Tim Minton is done with the Borscht Belt moment? All right, I am Jano Lieber, and thank you all for coming. I'm the MTA Chair and CEO, and I'm here with MTA President, MTA C&D President Jamie Torres Springer, Metro North President Kathy Rinaldi, our Senator Fernandez, thank you for being here. Assemblyman Dinowitz, these are both great supporters of transit. We just come through the budget. A lot was accomplished. Thank you for what you do. And we also are joined by our representative of our federal partners at the Federal Transit Administration, Donovan Vincent. Donovan, thank you for being here. Listen, what? Trains are going to keep coming. Enjoy. Climate change is always top of mind for us at the MTA. Absolutely top of mind, not just because Earth Day was this week, but because, as I often say, transit is the antidote to climate change. Transit is the antidote to climate change. Our transit systems, subway, bus, commuter rail, are what allows the New York region to have the lowest carbon footprint of any region in the United States. New York, believe it or not, is the greenest city in the United States, and it's because of transit. But we are as vulnerable as anyone else to the accelerating impacts of climate change, like torrential rainfall, extreme heat, coastal surge, sea level rise, all of the impacts of climate change. And it's no secret that Metro North has had huge impacts and damage from the most recent storms, even at this very yard where we are, which is low-lying and vulnerable as a result because of its proximity to the waterfront. Heavy rainfall causes flooding, mudslides, downed trees, and debris all over. We've gotten pretty good at cleaning up, but we have to reduce these impacts as much as we can, which brings us to what we're announcing today. Today, the MTA is excited to announce and unveil its new Climate Resilience Roadmap. This is a comprehensive blueprint to fortify the transit system against the effects of climate change. It outlines $6 billion in needs to make the MTA more resilient over the next decade, critical input as we are starting to get ready for the brand new capital plan that is going to have to be enacted first by the MTA, but ultimately by the governor and the legislature at the end of 2024 and into 2025. I'm going to let Jamie Torres Springer get into the specifics. But as we've been saying since our groundbreaking 20-year needs assessment was unveiled a couple of months ago, this is something we have got to do now. We have to prepare the system to withstand the effects of climate change. Today, we are making public a plan of exactly how we propose to do that. And as I always say, for New Yorkers, transit is like air and water. We need it to survive, and it will not survive unless we plan to protect the system from climate change. So with that, let me turn it over to Jamie Torres Springer.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning. We're very proud to release this climate resilience roadmap today. I'm very excited about this. It's been a personal passion of mine for many years. As Jano says, he said it again, we're the antidote to climate change, but the effects of global warming are already here. We all remember Superstorm Sandy more than a decade ago, but just in the past couple of years, historic rainstorms like Ida and Ophelia created major disruptions to our system. Rising sea levels and increasing heat pose equally dangerous threats to our infrastructure. If we don't take the proper precautions, we'll end up with more disruptions from extreme weather events and with deteriorating service levels, even on sunny days, due to the deterioration of our infrastructure. The smart players in the infrastructure world are recognizing this and acting on it. And today, the MTA continues to lead the way with this proactive plan to protect our system. It's unique in a few ways. Let me give you a preview of some of them. It is our first multi-hazard climate vulnerability assessment. That means we don't just look at the risk from something like a hurricane. We look at risk from coastal storm surge, sea level rise, torrential rainfall, which we've seen a lot of lately, and extreme heat. We use data from climate science and on-the-ground observations, including some of the folks that run this yard, for example, to look at 1,900 miles of track, 704 stations, 100 maintenance shops, 67 rail yards, 36 bus depots and facilities, and many more components. We learned a lot of our $1.5 trillion system is at risk now and in the future. Here at Mott Haven Yard, which carries 98% of Metro North's service, it is flooded from heavy rainfall 13 times since 2016. And you can understand why. Water finds its low level. You can see, if you look around, we're standing at a lower level than the rest of the neighborhood. So it's going to continue to be vulnerable. The number of heavy rain events per year will double by 2050. We'll hear from Kathy Rinaldi about the Hudson Line. 41% of its tracks are adjacent to steep slopes, which makes it vulnerable to mudslides. 1/6 of the line's tracks will be underwater at monthly high tide by the 2050s if we don't act. In the subway system, 63% of it is underground, and it's vulnerable to heavy rainfall. At least 200 stations have been impacted by torrential rain events since 2007. And it's getting hotter. The number of days with temperatures above 90 degrees is projected to triple by 2050, which will make New York City feel more like Birmingham, Alabama. That's got a big impact on all of our systems and equipment, not to mention passengers waiting on the platforms in our stations. We've already made a lot of progress strengthening our system. We've invested $7.6 billion, thanks to a lot of federal support and partnership from the FTA and the rest of the federal government, in nearly 4,000 individual coastal storm surge protections across the system since Sandy. We're improving drainage across about 70 subway stations in our current 5-year capital program. We may not always stop the water getting into our underground system like you see in those YouTube videos, but simple moves like raising entry steps and sealing street vents prevents the kind of flooding that takes service out or causes risk to our passengers. But as this plan lays out, there's a lot more to do. Let me give you some highlights. Big focus on Metro North now and in the future. Here at Mott Haven Yard, we're looking at how to manage stormwater with detention and pumping. And we're going to look at how some of the surrounding properties that you see around here, which have grown and been developed over recent years, might be contributing to getting too much water in the yard, disrupting service. We were out here with our partners at city agencies just a few weeks ago, looking at some of these issues, coming up with a plan that we can pursue together. And we have big plans to protect the Hudson Line, including with $20 million allocated in the state budget earlier this week for that purpose. I thank you to the senator and assemblyman and the rest of the legislature for that support. In the subway system, we'll focus on keeping stormwater out and making drainage and pumping upgrades to remove the water that does enter our system during our heavy rainfall. And a lot of work in the subway yards. We recently received a $33 million federal grant. Again, thank you, FTA partners, to install a complete stormwater drainage system in Westchester Yard in the Bronx. That's home to the 6 line, which carries 500,000 people each weekday. How are we going to get all this done? We'll need to make direct investments in new infrastructure, flood protection, pumps, detention tanks, flood doors and walls, new cooling systems. And we're showing today that our estimate for all that work is about $6 billion in the next decade. That's a critical input in the upcoming 2025 to 2029 capital plan that we'll be releasing in the fall of this year. But direct funding is not going to do it. We could put as much direct funding as we can imagine into the system, and it wouldn't be enough. We will leverage everything else we do by creating new climate resilience design guidelines that apply to all projects. It's much more practical to make something more resilient if we elevate it or we harden it when we're first building it or rehabilitating it than going back and doing a whole retrofit project. So we're integrating resilience into everything that we do. And finally, working with partner agencies. We'll continue to rely on capital investments by utilities and city agencies. We're pleased that we're continuing to work with a task force with New York City Department of Environmental Protection and Department of Transportation It's going station by station throughout the subway system, coming up with short and long-term solutions, everything from cleaning clogged catch basins to pulling fatbergs out of the sewer system, to adding more curb reveal so that the streets can handle more stormwater before it gets into our stations, up to making major expansions in neighborhood drainage, which is needed in many areas, and we're in a dialogue with the city about that. These are all ways that the city can act to help us protect the subway system, but protect at-risk neighborhoods too. So it's a benefit to everybody. That's our plan. We're looking forward to pursuing it. Lastly, before I hand things over to Kathy Rinaldi, I want to thank our teams who worked so hard to produce this report, led by the MTA's first dedicated climate planning division, many of whom are here, under the leadership of Frederica Cuenca, Alyssa Cobb-Conan, and Eric Wilson. And Eric will be conducting a technical briefing on this following this event. And with that, I want to pass things on to my colleague, Kathy Rinaldi. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. I can't tell you how excited I am as the president of the railroad to hear the investments that are included in this map. As the president of the railroad, my responsibility is to bring home the people that I carry into the city in the morning. This is a critical juncture for the railroad, as you can see. The Hudson line is over there, and we just had a New Haven line train pass over there. The Harlem line goes up that way as well. So this is where all three east of Hudson lines come together, and as you can see from the pictures there, a flood here shuts us down. It shut us down at the end of September. I don't even know if that storm had a name. So you hear about Ida, you hear about Sandy. There are rainstorms that come in the summer that have no name, but have the capacity to shut this entire system down. We are super proud of the service that we run, and that's due to the employees that you see here today who keep the tracks clear, keep the tracks safe. Our transportation employees, we run an amazing service. We have amazing on-time performance. We have ridership that's coming back every week. We are really excited about the service we provide our customers, and these kinds of effects will shut us down. So the investments that we're seeing here today, the investments that Jamie and Eric are going to talk about later, are going to be essential for us to continue to provide the service that our customers deserve, expect, and that drive this region and this part of the city. So with that, I guess I turn it back over to Jano for some questions.
Yeah. I think we'd like to give our elected leader partners a chance to say a few words. Assemblyman Denowitz?
Thank you. You know, my community, we have subways, we have mostly L's. We also have the railroads. We have the Hudson line, we have the Harlem line, we have the New Haven line. The Hudson line, the level of the tracks is approximately the same as the level of the Hudson River, and it's only a few feet away. For those of you who do not think that climate change is here, that it's in the future, it's time to wake up. That is why I'm very excited about this plan today that's being presented by the MTA, because we're going to be taking action that is actually going to address the issues that we have to address yesterday. You know, they used to talk about 100-year storms and 500-year storms. Well, we seem to have 100-year storms all the time now, and that's not going to change anytime soon. I have 4 young grandsons, and for their entire life, they have lived in a time of climate change, and I suspect their children will as well. So the action that's going to be taken here is going to start to turn things around, and I hope we can do even much more. I hope we pass legislation in Albany to provide even more funding, such as the Climate Change Superfund Act, which would bring in $3 billion a year without raising taxes by charging the people who made the mess, and so many other things that we should be doing. But today we are taking a huge step, and I just want to say thank you to everybody standing here, because this is going to make a difference in the lives of my kids, my grandchildren, and everybody else's. So thank you all.
Good morning, everyone. I'm State Senator Natalia Fernandez, and I too represent the Northeast Bronx. And I'm so happy to see that we are addressing climate change in the way that we will see it. A lot of people don't want to believe it or address it until it affects them. And with every rainstorm that's been coming, the storms with no names, more and more we're seeing that we need to make the investments, we need to update the infrastructure, and that is what this announcement is about today. And it is so overdue, so overwanted, but we are so overjoyed to see that we are setting an example of how we need to handle the climate change that is happening around us and how we can prevent future disasters and delays. Being proactive now is going to prevent the delays and destruction later. And in every storm that happens, that's the one thing people want to do. They want to go home. How can they get home if their means of getting home is disrupted, delayed, flooded? So this will definitely reduce delays, reduce destruction, reduce climate change destruction, and we'll really see how we can handle the weather, really, handle the climate around us as we continue to make moves in every part of our lives in government to address the climate change, to stop the destruction and disasters to come, but also be able to survive in the meantime. So very grateful that we finally made it to this point in making real action and investments to stop any further destruction and delays. But I thank Jano and the MTA for taking this big step, one that we've been asking for a number of years, even before me and maybe, I don't know, you, been into office. But this is a really good day and a huge leap into the future. So thank you so much.
Okay. I just got to say, we are fortunate to have folks in Albany who get it, who understand that climate change is something we have to deal with in planning investments. And we're going to be looking, Governor Hochul has been a great transit governor, and we will be looking to her in partnership with all of you in the legislature as we move towards enactment of a new 5-year MTA capital program. So with that, Tim?
All right, let's start with Alicia Reed right here from CBS News.
Jamie,
Thanks for taking my question. So when will all this get started, and where are you going to start?
Well, what we have today is a blueprint. I mean, this is basically a to-do list. This is a to-do list. If we're serious about having a transit system that lets New York prosper and survive, make sure that everybody can get where they want to go, work, school, medical appointments, whatever, we need a transit system that's not underwater. That's what we need. This is a blueprint of how to get there. We need the money. The capital program that is going to be enacted, again, first by the MTA board, the governor, and the legislature in the next year is how we're going to pay for it. But we are starting to make these investments. Already, we are attacking the problem of torrential rainfall in subway stations, as Jamie described. We're not sitting on our hands. We're doing stuff, but we have a long way to go. This is the blueprint.
So once this gets approved, let's say a year from now, then you'll start from there. Once that money's secured?
Yeah, we need.
Okay.
This is a $5 to $6 billion to-do list, and it needs to be included in the MTA capital program. As I said, every day we're working to make sure we keep water out of subway stations and out of yards and so on. But a place like this yard is going to be underwater when there's torrential rainfall. We need to do something, and we need the money to do it.
All right, Andrew Siff is over there from WNBC in the safety glasses. Andrew.
How are you? You've previously said that the capital plan is tied to congestion pricing. If it's tied to congestion pricing this time around and something happens and congestion pricing is not there, you have to fund this anyway. This is life and death here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Number one, congestion pricing is paying for $15 billion in the current capital program. This is work we want to do, but it's going to have to be funded in the next capital program. So we're getting started. We're starting the discussion when investments of this scale and importance and the risk that New York is facing. We want to get people educated. This is the to-do list for the next capital program.
And back to the West Coast over here, we've got Samantha Lehman.
It's truthful, right? I got it right.
Thank you. This is probably for Jamie, but can you give some examples of some subway stations that have had issues and the mitigation plans for them, some that you've already taken, some of the plans that are in this plan?
Sure. We've got, as I said, we've seen 200 subway stations that have been impacted by heavy rainfall in the last few years, and we've gone through and we've looked at every single one of them. Great example, the one train on the Upper West Side at 86th Street This is a really important example because there's a direct infrastructure connection between the city's sewer and water system and that station, which means that it gets inundated in a heavy rainfall. Long train.
10-car train.
10-car consist. The 86th Street station gets inundated in heavy rainfall, and during that Ophelia that we saw last fall, when so much of Metro North service was out in the Bronx and in Manhattan, we weren't able to get our passengers up to points to the north of this to get them onto Metro North trains because the IRT was out, and that was because of the impact at that station. So that's a station, and I want to go back to the point about when we're acting. We are underway with that now. Congestion pricing as part of this capital program will fund improvements to that station. We have 70 subway stations under construction right now in this capital program to make them more resilient so that we don't get disrupted service. But we know we have a lot more stations to get work done on, and those yards and the other points when water gets into our system, that's what's part of this plan that we're releasing today for the future.
But what are like the things that you can do? Like what examples?
Yeah,
of
we
things that you do?
have a variety of tools. We have some smaller tools. Believe it or not, raising the top stair at an entrance. You'll see that we're reconstructing stairways in subway stations. Raising that top step is a great way to keep water out. We've got vents that allow us to control the environment in a smoke or fire situation in the subway. That's really important, but we need to be able to cover those vents. And you can see on the cover of this plan a very simple solution, which is to cover the vents in the anticipation of a future storm. But there's more permanent improvements that we need to make in order to do that in a consistent way, because you don't always know when heavy rainfall is coming. Those are some of the simpler things that we can get done, and we are getting done. Then there's bigger moves that have to get made. One example, we've talked to the city a lot about this. There are streets that normally you would expect are going to capture some of the rainwater that's coming in the event of a flood, but they've been paved up a little too much, so there's not enough room for them to capture that rainwater. We're talking to the city about capital work that allows to enhance that curb reveal, as we say. And then more broadly, in neighborhoods like this, you need to be able to capture the stormwater and drain it. And that's what the city system is doing. The city system gets overwhelmed above 1.75 inches of rainfall in an hour. They can't completely rebuild everything, but there are places where neighborhood drainage systems can be improved to protect a neighborhood and protect the MTA assets, the subway stations and the yards. And we're doing collaborative capital planning around the city with them to talk about where there are those opportunities.
All right, over there we got Michelle Caskey from Bloomberg in the stylish safety footwear. Michelle.
Hello. So I understand, the roughly $6 billion that you want to put in the next capital plan to do infrastructure upgrades to fight against the climate change. But what does climate change cost you now out of your operating budget? When these storms come, these things happen, and you're pumping out water. What is that cost annually from your operating budget?
I'm not going to just make up a number off the top of my head, but you know that every day the MTA pumps out like 13 million gallons of water just on a dry day. What happens is that on a day when we get inundated by torrential rainfall, we have to deploy crews and equipment and extra pumping equipment, and then we have to also send a ton of people and equipment through to clear tracks. We have to, in a preparation phase, make sure all the drains are clear. We have to work with the city to make sure that there are any obstructions at street level. There's literally millions and millions of dollars that's going into offsetting the today effects of climate change. But what this plan is about is getting ready for the moment, as Jamie described, when in a couple of decades, the water is going to be over the tracks in Assemblyman Dinowitz's district. I mean, in the Metro North stations down by the Hudson River, the water is going to be over the tracks every month on a regular cycle. We can't let that happen. We have to make investments to protect the system.
All right, if you could just pass the microphone over there to Gregory Mocker from Pix 11, Greg.
Thank you, everyone. Back to a congestion pricing question. How
Thanks, there was moments since we had one, yeah.
how essential is it to this project, to these? Where would all of these be without that?
Congestion pricing is the key to the rest of the capital program we're in the midst of. We have projects we are ready to proceed with right now. We're ready to get them started. We're ready to get them into procurement and get contracts out. It includes work to make stations more resilient to heavy rainfall. We're ready to put that work out there, and we're on a pause right now until we have the results of the litigation, until we successfully get through the litigation and we're able to proceed with the rest of the capital program. So there is critical system resiliency work in addition to improvements to the system, making the system more accessible for ADA, resignaling the system, improvements across the subway system and the railroads that we are on hold for right now until we have until we're clear of the litigation on congestion pricing.
And back here we've got Evan Simcoe Bednarski with the New York Daily News, the hometown paper.
Hey, Jenna. So a lot of what you guys have mentioned so far today and where we are, the threat is water inundation, the threat is flooding. I know in the past you guys have spoken a bit about what I think of as dry day problems, heat, problems to power transmission, problems to communication. Is that included in this roadmap as well? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, heat is a growing problem in our system. As I said, we're going to see many more 90-degree days. So we've got whole sections in here, whole strategies related to addressing high heat. It means protecting our rail on the railroads and in the subway system. There's some innovative techniques that we've researched and we're actually deploying to make sure that the system, the rail can stand up to high heat. Kathy may want to speak about that. We have a lot of equipment and devices that are running the system. We have a 100-year-old system, but it's a very advanced technology that's keeping our system running, and that equipment has to stay cool in order to prevent disruption. So continuing to cool those equipment rooms, the communication rooms, the mechanical rooms is really important in high heat. And there's no question, above 90-degree heat day, our passengers are experiencing a lot of discomfort on the platforms. So we're also, as part of this plan, continuing to investigate what our options are for improving those conditions for our passengers in high heat days as well, and we'll have more on that in the future. Did you want to say anything about? No, you.